Cineverb.
Hello and welcome to Cineverb, a podcast discussing films in and out of the cinema. My name is Anthony Renteria.
And I'm David.
This week on episode 55, we're discussing the film Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, written by Michel Gondry, Pierre Bismuth, and Charlie Kaufman, and directed by Michel Gondry. And here is the synopsis. Joel Barish, heartbroken that his girlfriend underwent a procedure to erase him from her memory, decides to do the same. However, as he watches his memories of her fade away, he realizes that he still loves her and may be too late to correct his mistake. As always, we will begin with a spoiler-free review, and after our ratings, we will go into a full spoiler discussion. And of course, we will give you plenty of time to pause the podcast when that time comes. Okay, so I kind of want to start out because I think I've seen the film before, like in chunks, but this was my first like true watch, and oh my gosh, I have so many. Like I kind of have a lot of mixed feelings about it. Oh, and then I was gonna put this even earlier. I wanted to give a big shout out to Helen. She will be joining the Cineverb family of hosts probably in the next episode or 2 or 3. She was going to show up today to record with us, but we had some technical difficulties. But anyways, to the movie. Okay, so like I was really excited for this movie because I'm a huge fan of Charlie Kaufman. Mm-hmm. But I will say there is something like weirdly, like, I don't know, like it's weirdly like a cold movie. And I'm not, like, for some reason I thought it was not going to be a cold movie. Like, for some reason I thought it was like this huge relationship, like almost like a definitive love film. Like in a, like, love will succeed and conquer all kind of, feeling. And I kind of got the opposite this first viewing. So I was going to throw it your way because I know you've seen it multiple times. And I know this is like one of the earliest films that you've ever talked to me about and that you've mentioned as like a huge inspiration and influence on you. So like was this screening any different? Like what are your thoughts on the film previous and now?
Yeah, it was like one of the first movies, we talk about our film awakenings, the first movies where we were really paying attention and kind of for some reason the movies just sort of opened our minds to the possibilities of cinema. I feel like this was one of those first ones. I always remember like No Country for Old Men was one of the very first ones. I guess Tarantino movies in general. These are kind of, like, I think it was like the end of high school. I watched all these movies. And then I always think about this movie and American Beauty together, but I don't know why. I must have seen them back to back or something. But this one, definitely. I even remember finding the screenplay in a used bookstore and buying it and like reading through the screenplay after I'd seen the movie and just like appreciating. I think it inspired me to try to write screenplays when I was starting out like in college because I did try to write a couple of screenplays. So yeah, it was like really inspirational, I guess. I don't know if it's just the aesthetic that puts it over the top for me, like as being we're not at the ratings yet, but it's a 10 out of 10, just spoiler alert for me. I guess cause it had that early influence, plus it fits my aesthetic, I guess, just subjectively. And plus it's a really well-written film, well acted. You could question the directing, but I think for this movie, it works really well. And, it is. I think it is one of the kind of staple relationship movies. If you were going to just start someone off on no one had ever seen a romantic, but like you say, it's not a super romantic movie. It is very cold. Yeah. So it's almost one of those like I guess if someone wanted to get into the genre of like anti-romance movies, this would be one of the first ones to watch, I think.
Yeah. And see, that's something that I saw it with Helen, and that's something that, we were talking about exactly, was that it it almost feels like an anti-rom-com
Yeah.
during the majority of the film. And we'll get
Yeah.
into that into the spoilers and specifics. But one thing that she had brought up that I found super interesting was like every time she's watched it, she's gotten like a different vibe
Yep.
of like the meaning of it all. And I guess without going into any spoilers, like did the emotional feeling of the film feel any different? Like since you've watched it so many times, like was this experience like did you gain anything else?
Yeah, the main difference was I'm pretty sure the last time that I saw this movie was before I had ever really been in a serious relationship, and now seeing it
Yeah.
after having been in a serious relationship for years, like that was the main thing personally for me, was like noticing, oh my God, like this is really weird that there are very specific things in this movie that have happened in my relationship that I had no
Oh.
experience with before. But now watching the movie, I'm like, oh my God, that's weirdly accurate.
Whoa.
Uh, and I'm sure it has to do partly with like that, and probably why I connected with the movie in the first place is that Joel, Jim Carrey's character, is similar to my personality in a lot of ways. So it's like,
Oh my
definitely.
God.
It's kind of scary to like notice things that I've
Dude.
never noticed about this movie, and know that it's happened exactly in real life. So with me, it's
Wow.
like, oh my God, that's so weird.
So
My personality, yeah.
I was gonna be afraid to bring that up, but again, like right after that screening with Helen, I turned to her, I was like, that movie, that dude is David. Like for some reason, like as soon as I saw him on the train and he had like his notebook, like it reminds me of like literally the first time I saw you in our writing group. And like I don't know, like the whole like how he dresses, like how he holds himself.
Oh yeah, I
Like
like his style. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and it's like and it's not like a negative thing. Like it's just I was just like, whoa, like a lot of that and then it's just so weird because it's Jim Carrey. And it's like Jim Carrey is
Yeah.
the antithesis of not of like stability. And I mean that in like energy,
Hmm.
like he is
Yep.
such a wild like bubbling personality. And then I guess that's something we can talk about is the performances, which I found really amazing. What did you think about like all the performances in this film?
Yeah, I mean Jim Carrey, like specifically about him, and just this viewing specifically, noticing how well he plays a like slightly depressed but really self-conscious and insecure guy
Hmm.
is just
Hmm.
so accurate. Like just and anxious also, like he's very kind of anxious and nagging too, like in his relationship. I don't know.
Yeah.
I obviously I'm mentioning things that I also feel in myself or see in myself, but he played it really well. And just I mean he'd been in other, like the Truman Show. He plays
Yeah.
a pretty straight character, not like comedic, over the top like he usually does. But and the Truman Show is a great movie too. But
Yeah.
yeah, this movie is definitely his more depressed side. And I don't know if you've heard the anecdote of like him, like when he first had like a sit down with Michel Gondry about the movie, and like he was actually depressed like during that
Whoa.
period of time in his life.
Yeah.
And the director was just like I got the quote because I think it's hilarious, where he's like, and I can just picture it in like a French accent. He's like, "You're so beautiful right now. You're so broken. Please don't get well." He told Jim Carrey that, and then Jim Carrey, like I guess later talking about it, was like, "Yeah, that was really messed up," and that's why
Wow.
like it's just he remembered that. I was reading other anecdotes. It just sounds like he really didn't like working with this director. Uh, Sounded like this director made some questionable choices in directing, but
Yeah. So he's a French filmmaker.
yeah. Hmm.
Ah, that makes so much sense. Everything makes so
Yeah.
much sense now. And like even the contradictions make a lot of sense because of that.
Mm.
Wow. But
Yeah.
yeah, I,
Yeah.
I've I heard a lot of Jim Carrey being frustrated like while filming, and I see that you have that written down too. Like he would give
Yep.
other performers different like direction and then give him the opposite direction. And I think that's
Yeah.
I can imagine that would be very frustrating for an actor because everyone's having fun around you and then I mean he's literally Jim Carrey, so it's like I can't have fun. But there
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
there are well I'll save that for the spoilers. There are moments that I wanted to hint on that were like I don't think they're bad, but I do see Jim Carrey coming out a few times in certain sequences.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, and just like briefly, was like I was not aware Mark Ruffalo and Elijah Wood were in this.
Yeah.
So like when they showed up, I was like, "What the fuck?" And like again, me and Helen were like, "What? He's so young." Mark Ruffalo, like specifically, like he looks like a baby. And I don't know, like it's just I don't think I've seen a lot of his earlier films, so it was very. I mean, it was like really. It was like a how like people who watch MCU movies, they see a big character and they like cheer. Like I felt really excited to see young Mark Ruffalo with his like spiky hair and stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then in the spoilers, we'll talk about what they do, which is adds to the funness of them being in this movie. One thing I wanted to ask you, because this is another like small. And then, like, all the issues, like, even me saying I felt cold in the movie is, like, nitpicking an extremely specific detail in a film that is technically, like, a marvel in, like, every aspect. But one little nitpick that I did have, and I was curious what you thought, was, like, the score. There's moments where I really love the score, but there was, like, one moment where they're, I don't want to get into specifics, but they're talking about, their relationship, and it was like this weird, like bubbly kind of like cheesy rom-com kind of music where it, like, I don't know. There was like certain moments where the score didn't make sense to me. And I don't know if that's just me, or did you feel that, or do you feel like it was all cohesive?
The only time was like, during an initial scene where they're first meeting.
Yeah, that was
the music was very just stuck out as like being like stereotypical like bubbly rom-com music. I don't know. I guess that was intentional. But then I read that they specifically like they did an interesting thing in that scene where they only play the music when they're talking, and then the music stops every time they stop talking. I thought that was cool.
Oh.
Like it's an interesting little thing. And like, I don't know, like it's just, and also as we're saying, the movie's sort of, obviously it goes on to be sort of a criticism or just like an anti-rom-com sort of movie. So I guess it's just, it's sort of parody, I guess, in that scene, the music, but but overall, but like you said, man, in other scenes, like especially later on in the movie, the music is so like adds so much to it.
Like
emotions,
it's
so
pitch perfect. And especially like towards the latter moments, I was like, wow, this is really effective. One thing, so I want to talk about all the amazing stuff now. That I absolutely love. The set designs and the like construction of this dream reality. I think it's like some of the best work I've ever seen in any movie. Like it's like, I think the only other movie that I've like seen where I just love the idea of entering different worlds inside of a person's mind was Mishima, and like how that had like its 3 chapters, and what this film does with the whole procedure. Like I just thought that was like so beautiful. Like honestly, I feel like this was kind of like one of the earliest kind of things that set up the like current ad world where like Old Spice commercials, it's all like match cuts and like ripping into other scenes, like like someone walks into a different place and then it's a different scenario and it's like all matched and it looks weird and fake and dreamy. But this film, the way it does it, and I don't know how he did any of this stuff. Like there was scenes where I was just completely baffled because I can't imagine this had a huge budget. So what were your like thoughts on the execution of this whole metaphor?
Yeah, I noticed like a lot of little things, and I read them. Like most of it was practical effects. Like they wanted to keep the the CGI to a minimum, and I think there's only like really like 2 scenes where there's CGI, and the rest of it's like really practical stuff. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, like slowing it down, and I had to like reverse a couple of scenes just like to watch it again, like how they did it. Like there's some really very specific things, like I don't know, where it's like there's a shot of like where it's reversing what's happening and Jim Carrey's like rolling backwards and then up onto a couch, and then it just perfectly edits into a different scene, like the couch is somewhere else and it's a different scene. Like I don't know, like just very very cool like transitions and shot choices.
Yeah. And yeah, like the direction, that was something for some reason, just because I'm not familiar with Gondry's work coming into the movie, I was like, all right, this might be a badly directed movie. Because even though I love Spike Jonze, I feel like even like adaptation and
Mm-hmm.
the
Being
other
John
film,
Malkovich.
yeah, like I don't think they were like hugely, director visionary kind of experiences. And I mean that happens a lot with like a writer and then a director comes in without like a hugely specific visual taste, but this was like totally like took me like off my seat by the visuals. Like there's so many beautiful shots, and then like I mean we're talking about like the sets and all that stuff and the transitions, but even like the weird choice of lighting. Like there's so many
Oh
scenes
yeah.
where you can tell it's like someone with a high beam flashlight. And
Yes.
it
I love
makes no
those.
sense,
Yeah.
but it is so beautiful. Like where even I mean, there's like one scene, not to like really spoil anything, but they're on ice and like Jim Carrey's like lit so brightly that it's actually
Mm-hmm.
like overexposing the image, and that's technically like a really bad thing. Like you don't ever want an image to be that exposed because Jim Carrey is just like beyond white. Like he's just burned onto the film because this was shot on film. And I was like, wow, that is so genius. And like it just adds to the whole, like it's just so weird that every aspect of this film really does like collapse into itself. And it's very rare that we get a film that does that in like every category.
I think that's what I really admire. Yeah, that's when it throws the film up to like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 for me, is like where every element kind of is like, yeah, adds to itself and like complements each other. Like you're saying,
Yeah.
like even in that scene with the like your the spotlight on the ice, it's like a big bright like spotlight. And
Yeah.
thematically it makes sense to what's happening in the story at the moment, is he's being searched for in his own
Hmm.
mind, and so he's like having to run away from it, this big spotlight, but it looks really cool at the same time, so it's like, yeah, there's lots of cool stuff like that.
Oh
um
my gosh. Yeah. But I think we should start getting into the spoilers because this movie has so much depth that I want to dig into. So do you have a final statement and a well, you already gave your score, but do you want to reiterate your score?
oh man, I mean, some things we haven't talked about, just like as a sci-fi movie, I feel like it really kind
Oh
of,
yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like it set the bar for just a realistic, just like a really like obviously if you think about it for a second, it has goofy stuff in it, but it makes it so grounded and realistic. I think it really
Yeah.
set the bar for that specific genre. Like I'm thinking about movies like Her,
Hmm.
or even like shows like Black Mirror. I
Yeah.
think this really set the tone for that kind of movie, like a serious, small sci-fi, focused on a few people, even like
Yeah.
Ex Machina, stuff like that,
Yeah.
where the
This
tech is
was
like very in the back. The tech and stuff is very in the background and realistic and explained, but it's the main focus is on the characters and the story. So I don't know,
wow.
really
Yeah.
cool
It's
that aspect
it's
of the movie too.
it's very much like an A24 movie before A24. Like it has
Mm-hmm.
that very specific autorial vision with the weird sci-fi element,
Yeah,
but the element
yeah.
is not the purpose. The element is the like vehicle to drive emotions or catharsis. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the editing, I mean, we sort of mentioned it, but like, just I was
Yeah.
just noticing how that adds so much to the feel, like especially the melancholy feeling of the movie,
Yeah.
is that it's like constantly cutting back and forth between like the really good times in their relationship and the really bad times, like just mixing it up. There's no real arc to the movie, like for their relationship. It's just you get to see it all like mashed up, and it makes you question the meaning of it all, which is what
Yeah.
he's doing, I guess, is like sorting through all the memories. It's like how your brain would work if it's like sorting
Yeah.
through all the memories. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
just I love like any movie that has to do with like dreams. That's my thing. Like,
Oh,
that's one of my
yeah.
aesthetic things, is like anything that has to do with dreams. Like this movie just sets the bar for like, uh, just portraying a dreamlike state on movies. Just the way, lots of the specific like effects, like the way he starts realizing that is in his mind, like the
Yeah.
way he starts becoming lucid is so accurate to like actual lucid dreaming, for instance, or like uh just everything in the dream, like the way characters talk, the way faces are distorted, the way
Oh,
things are
yeah.
changing really slowly in the background, or things are really echoey and like out of focus. Like, I don't know, just everything visually and how would you say that? Auditorily, it all works really well for just making you feel like you're in a dream.
Oh my gosh,
I can't really think of a movie that's done it better than this. So yeah,
that's worked within dreams. Yeah,
right.
Like the only thing I could think of is like Inception, but I don't think that
sort of. Yeah,
I don't think that
there's
a
Linklater movie about dreams. Oh god, I'm gonna forget it, but it's also one of my favorite movies. Oh my goodness, but it's more like a documentary kind of style.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, dude, this movie was made for you. Like, I even remember one of your early writings that you sent me. One of your characters in that book is watching Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're right. I did make that part of that. Yeah, I did. Yes, you're right.
That's awesome.
Definitely an influence.
But yeah,
Waking Life was the movie I was just thinking of, trying to think of. Richard Linklater, really good movie.
Interesting. I'll need to check that out. But yeah, that one part that you just mentioned was the sound design. That was so phenomenal. Like, there's so many moments where you hear people's voices almost like discombobulating as the dreams are breaking or fracturing, and then there's the sounds of other people's voice, like just the way they edited the audio to feel like, because I saw this in the theaters, and there was moments where like I could hear Clementine behind me and then in front of me and then beside me all at the same time, and it was like very disorienting. So the sound design is spectacular in adding to that feeling. All right, well, I guess you gave it a 10 out of 10. So my final statement, I really loved the movie. I was a little let down from the relationship. I think it left me a little too cold, but I don't know. There's aspects that I think maybe I can solve in the spoiler, because there's like a weird thing that I realized that I'm like, wait. So we'll get into that in the spoilers, but I really love the film. I think it's technically just perfection. The sets, the score, most of the score, the sound design, the performances, the direction, cinematography, like editing, and obviously the screenplay I absolutely love. So I will give it. Oh yeah, and because I'm changing my rating system, all my previous ratings are invalid.
You heard it here first.
It's so weird because like, that first watch, I still wanted to give it a 10 out of 10, even though it wasn't a warm experience, because I like cold movies. But there's something about Joel's character that I can't grapple with. And I think maybe in the spoilers, we can unravel it. So right now I'm going to go with a 9 out of 10. But just for context, that would have been a 10 out of 10 yesterday.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's my rating. All right, so that will conclude our review portion of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can pause the podcast now, and while you do that, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review or comment on what you thought about the film or our takes on it. And you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or email us at cineverm@yahoo.com. And also be sure to check out our snazzy website, cineverm.com, where we also have written reviews. And speaking of reviews, be sure to check out my personal YouTube channel, A Lonely Critic, where I do weekly film reviews. But okay, let's get into the spoilers. So I guess I want to get into the emotional thing that I guess I'm struggling with is I kind of feel like this is like, I mean, it's obvious that this is a doomed relationship, right? So like, this is almost, or what is your reading on that? Like, I feel like the movie is more of a reason why people shouldn't be together than why they should. And like, I'm very confused because I kind of feel like even like Joel, he's kind of like not the right partner for her. Yeah. Is my reading.
Me too. I think this, like the ending, I think I misremembered the ending from the last time that I saw it, because in my head the ending is more ambiguous. Like, it's sort of like they accept each other, but it's not clear that they're gonna continue the relationship. That's what I remembered in my head. But obviously in the movie, they accept each other, which is a really good moment. Like, I really liked the conversation in the hallway. Like, I always remember that ending. It's cool. Like, the acting is really good. Like, they just decide to accept each other, like, with their flaws, and just do it again. And I don't know, the way they laugh, like that's really like this relieved laugh is like really genuine. I don't know, I just noticed how genuine that scene was this time. But
That is one of
I
the
did
best scenes of the
read,
movie.
I read that Charlie Kaufman, or maybe like an earlier script, or maybe what he wanted, his original script, there
Yeah.
was, the ending was definitely darker. You know,
Yes.
I don't know if you read about it, where it's kind of, I think where somewhere it said like even just like 50 years in the future, like she is going in to get her memory erased
Yeah.
again, and you see on a screen that she has had this procedure done like a dozen or more times, uh,
Yeah.
with Joel specifically. So they're still in the relationship, but they've constantly gone through this cycle. So yeah, that would have been a way better, like a nice little coda at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
That would be much more Kaufman-esque. And
Yeah.
yeah, but I wonder if the director kind of wanted it to be a more of a happy ending. Uh,
That's honestly the feeling I have kind of watching the movie. Like it almost feels like I don't know. Like I'm not really familiar with Michel Gondry's work, but there's something about the voice that he is portraying that I feel like doesn't have a clear message. Like I think there
mhm.
is multiple messages, but I don't think it all funnels into a solid conclusion. And like my big like key into that is like, you know, you have that hallway scene. That's like a little ending in itself. And then the film continues and then we see the beach scene again where they're on the snow and then you know how it's like looping.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like that is super smart, but I don't like why are we looping there? Like if anything, what if they were looping in the hallway, you know, or like looping in another moment? It just felt like I don't know. And then like the whole the original screenplay, like I was actually reading listening a lot on a podcast where they talked about, you know, there was a lot of changes from the original script, like tons.
hmm
Like even like in the filming he cut out a bunch of stuff. Like supposedly there the ex-girlfriend Naomi,
Yeah.
there's literally like deleted scenes with her in the like Blu-ray or whatever that they had shot, and I forgot the name of the actress, but like Jim Carrey in another interview was talking about that he was like really upset because he had really good chemistry with that actress but had
Hmm.
no chemistry with Winslet.
Really?
And yeah, and I kind of feel like the whole movie I was like I'm not really rooting for them. Like I don't like I like them as individual people to an
Yeah.
extent, but I'm not like and that was like a weird contradiction of like normally in like a even in the anti rom-com, like it's the despair that they can't be together or like
Yeah.
it's you know, they don't get what they deserve, but in this film like I don't know. And then I think like if the ending were to have digged into it like the original script did where you see them 50 years later doing the same exact thing, it's like some people
It's
just like get
scary.
stuck. Yeah, get stuck with people and it's like
Yeah.
why and it's like almost like a cyclical breakup that's never
Yeah.
ending. And I think that is an awesome metaphor for like sometimes you do feel like kind of not trapped by another person, but you feel like eternally like
Stuck in a loop.
yeah, well, like magnetically pulled to them, you know, and like I
Yeah.
like the idea that this film plays with is like, you know, the beginning of the movie is the end of the movie, and they see each other on the train, and there's something like there's that ineffable connection, and like I think I've felt that like in my life before, where like I mean, like even when I met you, like there's no reason why I should have hung out with you or we should have ever been friends, but there's like some unknown thing that's like, well, let's see
Yeah.
what this guy's about, and I think that happens in relationships especially where it's like like there's not like a clear like maybe it's like pheromones or like something like a little
hmm
more uh like scientific or something, but like it's normally, you know, like you just know when you know or something, like you get someone's vibe. And I think that would be a cool like this film kind of deconstructs that idea of like why are they so tight to each other and why are they like attracted when they're like seemingly completely opposites like
Right.
in every way.
Yeah, it's like playing with the ideas of the opposites attract,
Attract,
and
yeah.
the the idea of soulmates, you know, like are people meant for each other, and they're just, it's just fate, and
Yeah.
even if you erase their memories, they're still going to find each other again. But I don't. It does make more sense to. It's almost more satisfying to read the ending like a tragedy. Like, oh man, they're just gonna do it all again because they even some of the things they say to each other at the end, like when he's just kind of apologizing when they're listening to the tape. It's like it's too insistent. It's like desperate. It is like when you break up with someone and then you regret it immediately, and so you're like, oh, whatever. Like you just want to do it again. Like, I think it's more about that. Or I think Charlie Kaufman was writing more about that, and so if he'd had full control, it would have made even more sense. That's what he was writing about, was just the kind of tragedy of two people continuing a cycle, knowing that they're not compatible, but just like there's something toxic that like draws them together over and over again.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because like, and like the thing that I found very weird and alarming is like most podcasts that I was listening to, everyone was like, this is the perfect relationship. And I was like, wait, they like,
no.
When they get in fights, they're like doing personal attacks. And I think that's kind of like a line, like if you're going to get in a fight about, taking out the trash or something, like don't bring up, some personal trauma that has nothing to do with taking out the trash. And there's like moments where Joel's like sitting on the couch. She comes home from the bar. Well, I mean, this is technically related, but we never see in the film her sleeping with other people. And then he's like, no, you're just fucking other dudes. And I was like, whoa, dude, like that is so extreme.
Yeah.
And there's so many
they
moments.
Definitely have gone through a lot at that point. I don't know.
Yeah. And they're like, well, I mean, she does it too to him. And in another part, I forgot what she says. It was like, maybe it was like when they were trick-or-treating or like they were about to go out, and it was like, I don't know. I forgot. But like you could tell they like really dig into each other at some point. And I wonder like, well, that shouldn't be like kind of the goal, right? Like it shouldn't ever get that bad, but I don't. And all right, so this is the thing that really is blowing my mind. So because most of this film takes place in the dream, right? I mean, we maybe see the real Clementine for like, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
So like all the much. Clementine we're seeing is a dream version of Clementine.
True.
So like
it's from his perspective.
Yeah, and then like, because I've been thinking about memories and like a lot where it's like, every time you remember a memory, you're amplifying the emotional version of it. So if it was a happy memory, it gets happier. If it's a sad memory, it gets sadder. If it's traumatic, it gets more traumatic. And like you only remember those aspects. And the film does kind of play with that, as he's being erased. He's like, and then like I found this fascinating. I don't know if you noticed, but like the erasing starts with the bad memories, and then it starts going into good memories of her. And then, he starts to run away into his childhood memories. But I found that interesting. It's like, of course, like right after a breakup, you would immediately remember all the horrible things. And I'm just curious, like, was Clementine ever like how she is in his memories? Or was it worse or was it better? Like, it's kind of weird if you think about it in that aspect. It's like, is that like, because I was kind of feeling like Joel, like he's not as in depth of a character that I'm used to seeing in Kaufman films. And I'm wondering now, because I really connected with Clementine. Like, I thought she was so amazing. She's so fun. She has a lot of depth. Like, she has some of the most beautiful lines where, like, there's the line she repeats a couple times, I think, where she's like, I'm just a person trying to find my own, like, damn, I already forgot
happiness or something.
Yeah,
like,
I
remember.
I'm trying to, like, I have my own life, like, don't put me on a pedestal. Like, I am my own person. And like you're imagining this fictionalized version of me. And I thought that was like, well, like, yeah, this whole experience that we're experiencing as a viewer is his perception of her. So I don't know. I just found, but then so I was like, if I'm criticizing Joel, but this is technically a creation of Joel. So like, this is technically also Joel. So I guess I do like Joel because he's imagining this version of her that is fascinating. I don't know. It has me like in a weird loop.
Yeah.
Well,
first thing, something before I forget, like that's interesting is that I read that. Well, that whole thing that I'm not a concept or whatever is interesting because I guess the the phrase manic pixie dream girl wasn't around until like a few years after this movie came out, but it's definitely, I guess the concept, everyone kind of understood that was a thing in movies, or culture. And it's interesting that it's kind of like commenting on that, and sort of,
because she's like a subversion of it, right? Because that's what I
I
honestly
think
came into this movie thinking she was like the definition of manic pixie dream girl. Like I thought she is what inspired like Scott Pilgrim and all that kind of stuff. And she was honestly like, my reading was the opposite. Like she punches him and she's like pushing him away a lot, and like she's not like really satisfying a lot of his things. Like she's almost like a force of nature, like almost not really with him, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, she likes. There's a lot of well, speaking also of like the scenes that are actually her that we see, like the second time that they meet on the bus. There's a lot I noticed this time. There's a lot of red flags about her personality that and you can see that the way they act. Like Joel is really probably notices all of those red flags and is very hesitant to initiate conversation with her. But then he goes back to his lonely apartment and is like, he's thinking about her. So she is one of those. It's such a interesting personality that's really specific. That is like, when you first meet them, they're all exciting and stuff because they're all over the place and and manic and exciting and whatever, adventurous and impulsive and all that stuff. But all of that also comes with a ton of stuff under the iceberg, which is like, I mean, that she shows in that first scene. Just the red flags that I made note of was just how needy she is just off the bat, like all over the place, easily offended by his like just comments where I think he's just trying to continue the conversation and he says something just really silly, but she gets really offended by it, and then she gets passive aggressive about it. Like the word nice, keeps coming up through the movie and she gets really passive aggressive about that word for some reason. And then she's immediately after, like in the first conversation they're talking, she's talking about how she's going to marry him and, like telling him like, never leave me and all this stuff, I don't know, just very, very, she's obviously the very insecure underneath her facade. And is constantly needing to distract herself probably from her own depression. So deeply troubling character as well. I don't know. I think her and Joel are very similar in that way. It's just that Joel is very closed off, which she doesn't like about him and causes conflict later in the relationship, it seems like. Where she's they're like all complete, out there.
Yeah, they're complete opposites. Like everything is just the opposite. And then it's interesting, like you're saying, like her depression and like chronologically, this train ride happens right after the Elijah Wood incident because the beginning is the end or whatever. So like you could also read her like immediately trying to, commit to this guy as like, I need to get away from the other guy. And then,
which makes you wonder about, like Joel, the scene where Joel's accusing her of going, I mean, he does make several comments like that of like accusing her of going out and sleeping with guys or like using that as a way for guys to like her and stuff. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he's exaggerating, but it would make sense for this character as well. Cause it does seem like she has that like desperation and, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I found that I didn't enjoy. And like, maybe I'm just weird, but like, I felt like I think there was only one scene where we actually see them kiss. And I guess it's hinted that they like have sex, but it was really weird how we never get any sort of physical.
That's true.
Like there's no making out. There's no like your typical like super intense romance. And like, I found that very weird. And I think that's why that comment threw me off, because like normally, we would have seen that or seen something, but like, like the closest they've ever got was that, they're under the bed sheets. And then that's very telling that he was like, I want to keep this memory. So it makes me, I don't know, it just makes me a little confused. I don't know if that was like the director just not thinking about that. But one thing that
that is weird. No, I didn't even think about that, but that is really weird.
Yeah,
They
because
don't
I was
show
thinking
any of the physical aspect of the relationship
at all.
I guess
Like,
just because the focus is just completely not about that. But I don't
and
know. Yeah, it is weird.
it makes me wonder if they ever, like, I don't know. I think it was just like a director writer thing. Like they just didn't think about it, or the focus, how you're saying, is about more mental ideas. But it
Yeah.
reminds, like, I am reminded of like 500 Days of Summer, and I think
Mm.
that's probably still like I think that's maybe a little bit above this for like a relationship kind of movie, but I think
Hmm.
it's only because the connection. Like I think this is a better made movie in every aspect, but I think that I was more emotionally connected, and like in that movie kind of does the time jumping of a relationship. Like there's some scenes where you start at the end, or like day 300, day 10, day 400, whatever.
Yeah.
And I love how in that movie, like I did feel like they were in love with each other intensely for short moments, like, and there's tons of scenes of them being physically intimate.
Mm.
And I thought that was really weird that it was missing in this movie. But the thing you brought up with Joel, like one of my favorite scenes with him that I found like very disconnecting was they're laying on top of each other, and like I thought it was beautifully framed. And it's like a shot that's shared around of the film, where like her head's on top of his head and they're like looking sideways, and then she's like, when are you gonna show me your like journal? I want to like find out everything about your mind. And then I just thought that was so weird that he's like unwilling to share all that stuff, and I was like, man, I don't like this character for some reason. Like it's like,
Oh
why
shoot.
why wouldn't you share it with your like partner, right? I don't know.
Let me make a confession. That's one of those things that is an exact mirror
Oh
of
my
my
god.
reality. I'm exactly the same, so I completely understand that. Like
Wow.
I exact same thing has happened to me. Like I've got a journal. I
No
it
one's read
feels
it.
weird to it's like a thing, like it's a personality thing, I think. Because it's
Yeah.
just like I don't that's like it would be like if it were possible to connect my brain up to someone and they could just see my unfiltered thoughts, like
Hmm.
I wouldn't let anyone do that. Because
Yeah.
there's like there has to be like a certain level of privacy. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of those things I was like, yeah, I bet you that people would see that as unlikable and like a character flaw, but unfortunately I can completely relate to that because I've
Wow.
done the same thing, and it's also been a thing like why can't I read your journals? Like I don't understand, but like I
So
don't know how to explain it, but it's just like I don't know.
so
But
you think
maybe it's a
that's like
character
a
flaw.
do you think that's like a comes from like a deep fear? Like
Oh,
maybe if
maybe
someone
because that is
knows
part of his
this.
character too, is
Yeah.
like his kind of anxiety, or I don't know. They don't really focus much on his what he's even writing in his journals, but I guess it
Yeah.
just contributes to his like closed off sort of, he's private. He's like a private person, and she's the
Yeah.
exact opposite. So like, obviously it's gonna cause a conflict eventually, because like she said, she's just an open book,
Yeah.
so
And see, like I think that must have been something that was removed from the original Kaufman script, because I was thinking back of all the Kaufman movies I've watched, and there's a lot of voiceover, and there's a lot of monologuing, and there's a lot of
mm,
like I always feel like I'm in the character's head. I mean, literally being John Malkovich, or adaptation. We literally are in
yeah.
his head and have a replica of him that is the the opposite. And even I'm thinking of ending things. I rewatched that, and I was like, wow, there is so much. I mean, that whole movie's within a head, but like Jessie Buckley, who is like the main character for the majority of the film, like you always hear what she's thinking, and then she responds with a completely different statement. And I was like, I was very confused, like why we weren't getting, like, the movie kind of starts with it, like there's that beginning
Yeah, it does.
little monologue, and I really wish there was more. Like I guess I felt like what Clementine probably felt with the Joel character. Like I wanted to know more about him. Like I feel like this is
Hmm.
kind of the thinnest Kaufman character, but I know there's some
Yeah.
depth in there. It's just, and maybe that's part of the film. Like it also wants you to feel like Clementine, like he is a closed
Hmm.
book. Like you can't penetrate him, even going in his dreams. Like he is very reserved. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, like yeah, I guess that is just supposed to be part of his character. And it's also something I thought about is that this movie is less than 2 hours long, and I feel like they could have even made it longer and gone more
Yeah.
into his character, both of their characters. Well, I mean, with Clementine, we don't really learn anything about her life, like her, her early years or anything. We even get scenes of Joel's childhood a little bit, but we don't get anything about Clementine. Like, why is she the way she is? You know, what are her past relationships or her childhood? Like, we don't know anything, even less about her. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. They just didn't have the time to focus on that. It's just like, what are you going to focus on in this movie if it's not 2.5 hours long,
Well, that brings up an interesting thing that I think we should talk about, is that there's a lot of subplots in this movie, which I wasn't expecting.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know Mark Ruffalo was in this, but like that is a whole, like that could be its whole film by itself. Like this whole organization, you have all those, like, what did you think specifically about that whole part of this film?
Yeah, I really liked all those characters, that little group of workers. Yeah, Elijah Wood, Mark Ruffalo, and Kirsten Dunst. Their dynamic is really realistic in a weird way, like a way that employees interact with each other, like the weird, awkward ways that employees interact with each other and sort of know about each other's lives, but sort of don't, and sort of like each other, but sort of don't. I thought it was really interesting, or how they interact with the boss, and how it's just such a it's funny, like that brings a bunch of comedy because it's such a shoddy organization, such a disorganized, like scarily disorganized organization for one that's erasing people, causing brain damage, as the doctor
literally
says. Literally, that it's funny. Like, I think that it provides a lot of like the comedy of the movie with those three, and their characters are really interesting. It does sort of surface level all of these characters because there's not enough time, but you want to know more about most of these characters. Like Elijah Wood, I love his character of just like, he uses his job to get girls in a really sleazy way, like, using the memories and then bragging about it to his coworker, and then Mark Ruffalo, like, acting, he actually serious at first about the job and he just wants to focus, but then as soon as Elijah Wood leaves, he gets stoned and drunk with Kirsten Dunst and they have sex, and it's just like, he's hilarious. And then Kirsten Dunst, like, being attracted to the boss and flirting with him, and that they have a whole history. Like, it's funny. And the boss actor, like, I thought it's just funny. Like, the awkwardness of it, like, of him responding to her flirting to him was hilarious. And him just trying to ignore it, but like, it's just, she's so determined. Like, I don't know. It was all funny.
Well, I mean, he knew that he erased her memory. Like, I feel like there was like kind of a hint that maybe she's been wiped more than once, because even like, I was very confused. Like, when Mark Ruffalo was like, "All right, I'm gonna go outside," and I was like, "Wait, Mark Ruffalo has a crush on this character, obviously."
Mm-hmm.
So like, there was some sort of like, let her do what she's gonna do that she always does. And then I mean, I see in your notes you even brought up that in a previous draft, I guess they had that she had an abortion after the affair. God, that's so wild.
Interesting. Yeah. That would maybe have been a little too much, but I don't know how they would have fit all that in there. But I just think they did enough with that. Like, the twist of learning that she had her memory erased and that they have history is like a really good extra twist to put in there that's not related to the main characters, but is like a satisfying little, like, oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. And makes all these side characters significant, I don't know.
Yeah. Like, she is the key to that, because she is the one that initiates the the exposure of the procedure. So like that whole moment, it was so interesting just seeing that unfold. I really loved when Mark Ruffalo's outside, he starts honking like an idiot, and then the wife just slaps, and then like, I don't know if he actually, like, it looks like he actually just tripped, because the way he falls like against the van, I just thought that was like perfect. It was just so funny.
Like, just like I liked the goofy. I'm glad that maybe that's why it's good that Charlie Kaufman didn't also direct this movie, because I mean, the comedy aspects of the movie are funny and like add a good balance to it to make it sort of bittersweet. the whole experience. So
Yeah, because he's not, yeah, like, I don't think he would have made it as light. Like, it almost
no,
has, like, this weird, like, it feels like this movie's from this time period. You know, like, the sense of humor feels like this, you know, early 2000s kind of, like, rock aesthetic. Maybe it's just the workers, like how you're saying, like, they all feel like people that I can imagine in that time were goofing off, getting stoned, and drinking and shit. Like, the way they're dancing on top of the bed makes no sense, and like he's in his underwear and she's like just in her underwear too.
uh-huh.
It's like why?
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know. It's a funny. I remember
But
that. There's so many little scenes that you remember from this movie. I feel like that's one of them for some reason, just because it's so like they're just doing it right there on top of him. Like it's funny. Like it's just how disrespectful they are of the whole
yeah,
process.
but
Just taking
what?
his drinks, just
Oh my
whatever.
god, yeah. And then Elijah Wood, like you mentioned it earlier, but like how he's a complete creep. And I love, like, the thing I love the most about his character's involvement is the moments where Jim Carrey's like, some guy got my girlfriend's number, and like in the
Uh-huh.
dream, and then he keeps trying to see him, and then like there's that one part in the library where his head keeps like shifting into the back of his head. There's the other
Yeah, really
moment
cool.
where they're in the office and his face is like this weird distorted, like almost like claymation looking, like just blur.
Yeah, yeah.
All that stuff was so nice.
Yeah, very accurate to how things sometimes appear in dreams. Yeah, all the times that they do the face distortions are really creepy.
Hmm.
There's even like kind of a jump scare, and when he comes to the office with Clementine, he's like in the dream confronting the doctor, and then he turns
Yeah.
around and it's a different lady with the blurred out face. Like that was
Oh yeah.
genuine. That was kind of like a jump scare
Yeah.
in the middle of this movie. It was genuinely scary with the lighting too, like you mentioned earlier. The
Yep.
weird just light on the camera pointing at
Hmm.
people just adds to the creepiness of it all. And yeah,
It weirdly like reminded me of like kind of like Blair Witch Project, you know, like that just
yeah,
sense of like supreme singular focus, and like no one, like people are trying to run away from the camera almost.
uh
Um,
huh,
So what did you think, like, specifically about the Elijah Wood aspect with Clementine? Like how he was using, you know, like he was using all the stuff that I guess he had kept, like the necklaces, and then like going on the ice lake
oh yeah,
with her. Like, oh my god.
trying to doing this, saying the same lines as
Yeah.
that he read, I guess, in Joel's diary.
Do you,
Um,
do you think that character has been doing that? Like that was not the first?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like it's implied that this is what he does
Wow.
at his job. It's a little perk of the job. Uh, yeah, which is funny.
Yeah. My
Yeah,
favorite
Elijah Wood is really
line.
good at playing like silly, sleazy little characters.
Yeah, like
Um,
I wonder why he hasn't had many roles. Another shout out to Helen. She recently got me onto this TV show with Elijah Wood, called what is it called? Dirk Gently, and it's like
huh.
super good. And he plays not like a sleazy creeper in this like in this film, but he plays like this, like, you know, he's kind of like the person realizing what's going on in this, like, where it's like about a detective. It'd be a lot to explain, but it's an amazing
Yeah.
show. I think it got like canceled or something, but super awesome. But yeah, like I wonder why he kind of not fell out, but like why he isn't more prevalent, because I feel like he can do like these swarmy characters, and then he can be like almost like a Paul Dano type. Like I feel like he would have fit in that role where he can play weird, scary people, but then also like normal, like dudes and stuff.
Oh my God, there was a movie I saw recently with him. Ugh, that I just can't even. Come to Daddy, that's it. Come to Daddy, where
Wow.
he plays like a really good movie, like a creep. I guess he's not. Well, he's like a pretentious like tech bro in that movie, and he does a really good
Whoa.
job at
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
then I mean, Sin City, if you've ever seen that, like, he plays that the creepy killer, and
Wow.
then
I did not remember he was in Sin City. Wow.
Maniac is another random movie that he plays a serial killer in, and it's pretty good. Like he pulls it off because he's kind of creepy. His face is sort of creepy, so he
Yeah.
can play. He's cool. Like he can play that character really well. and play a Hobbit,
Yeah.
So
Man, yeah. I mean, he did such a great job in that movie. Like that is like just thinking back about the Lord of the Rings, like that was the hardest role to nail because it can go either way. And like maybe some people do say it like goes extreme in one way or another, like over emotional, but like I don't know. I think he nailed that like
oh
so
yeah.
well. But anyways, one thing I wanted to talk about was so like the parts where the dreams are like deconstructing. Like I wanted to talk about like my favorite one was when she's like walking away after she I guess crashed his car into like a fire hydrant or whatever. And there's like she's like walking they're like walking back and forth and like shit's like breaking everywhere and everything's like losing texture and details. Apparently like there's one moment where she's walking and she's missing a leg. And it's just for like a brief couple of seconds. And I was like listening to a podcast about it, and they were like, yeah, like apparently like in the edit room, Michael Gondry was like, can we just like cut her leg off? So like she's just missing a leg. Like it's there, like she's walking as if she had it, but it's just not in frame. And it's just like the weirdest thing. And it made me think like, oh my gosh, I wonder like if I were to pause this movie during all these deconstructing element scenes, if there's just like weird limbs missing or just weird stuff like that.
Yeah, little Easter eggs and stuff. I really like the bookstore scene later on that where they're talking and things. It's just slowly at first, like really subtly, books disappearing in the background, and then it just gets faster and faster. And then I don't know if it's that scene or the other one, another one where he's in a bookstore and the lights go out behind him, and it's really moody the way it is. And then he transitions into another scene really seamlessly, just walking through a doorway. And then, yeah, I don't know. Oh, and then something we haven't talked about is that's interesting about the dream sequence or the memory sequences is like where they go back and forth between just playing out the memory, and then all of a sudden they're reflecting on the memory, and then they'll go back to playing out the memory like it was, or then they'll change it. Like I thought that was really cool. Yeah. And I read that was confusing to the actors, or they didn't like it. I guess Jim Carrey didn't like that it was confusing, that they didn't know when they were supposed to be in the scene or when they weren't. But it actually works really well because it is very dreamlike, just like because it's a memory, but I guess they want some part of his brain. It's like when you're lucid, and it really is like lucid dreaming. It's very similar, like where you're in the dream and you want to be in the dream, but then all of a sudden you become aware that you're in a dream, and you start doing things differently, asking your dream characters questions, and they respond weirdly. But then sometimes your brain just kind of relaxes and you just go back into the dream and you're just following the dream. And that's kind of I think that's cool how they portray that in these scenes. I really haven't seen that anywhere else in movies.
You see, that's like I guess the biggest aspect of this movie that I don't get, because I don't think I've ever had a lucid dream. I mean, I don't even remember my dreams ever. Like it's very I think I remember like 3 dreams total.
What?
Yeah, like seriously, it's insane. Like so like all this God. Like it's kind of crazy that you're saying this is like exactly what it feels like for you. That's awesome, man. Holy shit.
I guarantee you Charlie Kaufman has done some lucid dreaming, because it's very, very accurate.
So is that because I've heard like you can work yourself into doing lucid dreaming. Is that like what you've done? Like, are you like a master at it? Like you can just lucid dream? Oh, okay.
I got into it really strongly, like at a certain time. Like there were a couple of years where like I was like reading about it, and I was doing the reality checks that you're supposed to do during the day to hopefully have during your dream, where you just suddenly realize that you're dreaming. And I had a lot of lucid dreams, but I never got to the point where I could just make myself, have them. It just happened randomly. But yeah, lots of things in this, like when he starts becoming lucid in the movie, I think it's really, they do a cool thing where it's like flashes sort of like a red in the camera, like really quick. And they do that a few times, and it just like indicates like, whoa, like he's like becoming aware. And then the part where he's trying to wake up in the dream, when they're in the woods and he's trying to open his eyes and wake up. and he does for a second, and he's like really, you can see for a second, and he's really surprised by it. That's another thing that is, where sometimes when you're lucid dreaming, you become aware of your body, and you can feel your body in your bed. But if you like focus on it too much, you'll wake up. So you like have to like refocus on the dream. So
Holy
I don't know,
shit.
just a little bunch of little things like that were really cool.
Oh, wow. Well, one of the other major aspects I wanted to hit was the childhood scenes, because that was like an interesting, like it makes sense in the script because he's trying to go into other memories that are unconnected. But I thought it was very interesting how, like, I don't know, we don't really get like any explainers of what these moments meant, but you can imagine like in another film or something, like, oh, this is what caused this. What did you think about like all the childhood stuff and like how it was performed by Jim Carrey and the set design?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He does a funny job of doing, there's a couple of times where he's imitating a toddler, like when he's asking for a snack from the refrigerator, that his body language, his movements and body language were really, really cool, like really accurate to like a toddler. But then it's really weird. Those scenes are kind of weird in like an uncomfortable way. I don't know how to describe. Just strange. It's almost like it's like watching like a fetish, like someone's fetish of like I don't know. There's something really weird about those scenes that I can't really like put my finger on, but strange vibes going on. Is that like, he's an adult, but he's acting like a baby, but then sometimes he's acting like an adult, and then she like pulls up her skirt to remind him of herself. Like, it's really weird. Anyway, weird Freudian stuff going on in those scenes. But overall, they're really cool. Like all the perspective stuff, like them in the sink,
I love that
together.
That scene,
it's really cool. And
that's
then
awesome.
The scenes that he's ashamed of are funny. Just I guess they were a little stereotypical. I guess it would have been better if there was something like unexpected, but
more
it's
specific.
Just like like him getting caught masturbating and him hurting an animal. It's like because he was pressured into it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was giving me like, I can't think of the specific movie, but it was giving me like kind of weird, like, I guess it was like Stand By Me kind of vibes. Like I was hoping it would go kind of like more into that, but it was like an interesting choice to have him. I don't know, like it was like, I was kind of confused because like in the childhood scene where he's killing the animal, he is like, it's an actual child. And then we keep cutting in and out of him being like, they do the like Honey, I Shrunk the Kid thing perspective, whatever they did to have him be the child. And I was like, why didn't they commit to a certain choice? Like, because the whole like dinner scene, like you're talking about, that feels like a weird fetish. Maybe it's because he's big Jim Carrey the whole time. So I don't know. That was a weird choice for sure.
I liked where they transit. It just fits like the weird memory kind of shifting thing. I like where it's just the kids, but it's Jim Carrey. It's the Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet's voices just talking as if they are the kids. I thought that was really cool. Yeah, because it's like not supposed to be realistic at all, but it just kind of works from a dream logic perspective. And it's it's really interesting just watching the kids like act out the thing, but like hearing their voices sort of responding to it. That was a cool touch.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I do wish for the dream, like, I don't know, there's like some of that childhood scene specifically, I wish we would have been like more, because there are some, it's like, I don't know, I feel like you could do anything with all the dreams, but it was interesting how a lot of the dreams almost play from like a third person perspective, like he's looking at himself. Is that something that happens in lucid dreaming, or are you looking through your own eyes, or are you looking at yourself within the dream?
I'm usually always in behind my own eyes, but
okay. See,
I don't think I've ever had a dream where I probably have, but I just forgot, but not many, like where I'm seeing myself outside. Yeah.
I do wish we would have had like, because I don't think we ever get a single shot where we're seeing through his eyes. But I think that just might be because, I was getting into Hitchcock a little bit. So Maybe
Oh,
that's just
yeah.
like weird POV
You wanted that
shots.
POV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did one thing. So, I was talking about how the movie kind of had me cold. There are like some moments that feel so warm and real. Like we had talked about how she asked to read his journal, and then he says no. Like that feels like a real moment that someone would actually have in a relationship. And then like also, previous to the childhood thing, when they're just like laying on the couch. And then she's like, you're going to look at my crotch and get horny. And then, like, I love how it edits into him lifting his leg. And then, like, he's like saying, like listening to her, but not listening to her because he's literally doing what she's saying. And then there's like another moment where she's just eating like Chinese food on the couch. And then he's like freaking out, like, you're being erased. Everyone's being erased. What are we going to do? And then, like, she's just like nonchalantly, like, I loved all the moments of like, not boredom, but I feel like the majority of all relationships are like, it's like how people, like being in the military, like everyone imagines like, oh, you're going off to war. Like even when you're deployed, they imagine you're in like a tank all the time. But in reality, half of it's just waiting and like just doing weird things to make up the time. I feel like my favorite like relationship movies focus on those down times because I feel like that's when you really feel comfortable with someone, when like nothing really big is going on, you are just like enjoying each other's company. So like I loved those few moments that were in his memories, and I thought that was awesome, those scenes in particular.
Yeah, shout out, that reminded me, shout out to Patterson, the movie with Adam Driver in it. It's like the entire movie is that, just like
Wow.
a relation, the boring moments of a relationship, but like how it's really beautiful.
That's
Yeah.
I need to watch, dude. I freaking
For a
love
more
that.
optimistic take on that, watch Patterson.
Huh. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out.
I feel like the scene that we haven't talked about
Mm-hmm.
is the last dream / memory that he has, where they met on the beach,
yeah.
and then it transitions to night, and they go into that house. Like it just it sticks with me aesthetically, and I don't know why it's so powerful. Like watching it this time, the music had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
I think it's cool how the music starts out. It's some song in reverse, like you can tell it's just backwards, but it makes it really moody. And they're exploring the house, and then it starts falling apart, and just subtly in the background, and the ocean starts coming in, like washing at their feet, and it's all the lighting is all that weird camera, flashlight in their face kind of lighting, and it's really emotional in a weird way that you wouldn't expect it to be, but every element of that scene, the house crumbling, and it all leads up to that moment, the blurry moment where their faces are really close, and she's whispers the "meet me in Montauk," and it's really dreamy, and then that's it. Then it's like hard cut to that's the last memory being erased. That whole sequence is just done really well, and I just wanted to shout it out.
That is the like truly the peak of the emotional catharsis of the film for me as well. Like, and so like how I was talking about, I wish we had more monologues. Like there's the moment where he is about to run away, and he's like, in the original memory, I just ran, like the first time I just ran away because I was scared of you. And then like he goes in, like he's pacing back and forth, and like you're saying, like the water's flowing, and then she's not even like, I think she's up the stairs, so we just hear her, and then she's like, what if you stay? And then it's like not till the like end of that dialogue where she's like looking down, but still not like all the way down the stairs because she never was. And
and he doesn't have that memory.
Yeah, and I thought that was super beautiful. And like one thing like I just thought of was like, I wish, because I guess one of my biggest complaints of this movie is the beginning and the end, and like how it's like this weird loop. I don't really like it because I don't think it like establishes the movie very well. Like I think if it could have been me, like I would have loved to see this scene as it actually happened, and it feel very confusing and just weird, and then it would cut to the same credits of him crying or whatever, but it would be this first scene, and then when we end with this memory being erased, we could actually see how he felt, and like see the thoughts he was having, and then him wanting to stay and then it all crumbling. And I think it would have had a more impactful thing versus the train thing. Because for some reason, I don't know. And it's so weird because like like a lot of the stuff I write, the beginning is the end. So it's like, maybe it's like this weird subconscious, like I kind of hate it because it reminds me of my stuff. And like, maybe I fear like, oh, this is actually like a very cheap thing to do. Like doing the beginning is the end thing. But like, I feel like it didn't really add anything, like with the whole, like where it ends with him, with Elijah Wood, like knocking on the window, like while he's waiting outside her apartment. Like I thought that was a weird place to end that, like, I guess the beginning is the end loop, of the film, because when we finish with this memory, like it's such an emotional high, and then we cut back and they're in the car and she plays a cassette or something. I was like, wait, what's going on? Like I feel like the film already emotionally ended for me.
I guess it's just to establish the mystery of it, because it just supposed to start off appearing like a regular whatever romantic comedy whatever movie, and it appears that way, but then the Elijah Wood tapping on the window is just the first indication that there's something weird going on. And then the movie starts. So it's just like to set up the mystery. And I'm trying to imagine if it was the beach scene at the beginning and then it just ended when he left. It wouldn't really establish the like what's going on here. It would just be, oh, like that was a scene that happened.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could probably figure out a way to like add something to that establishes that something weird's going on, but
yeah,
I don't know.
One thing I've always wanted to do is like re-edit a film, like screen capture this whole movie and then like plug it into like Premiere and just rearrange scenes and see if I can.
Yeah.
There's some actors, I forgot the name of the actor. He does it with like all the Star Wars movies, like, and he does private screenings. I think that would be so fun.
But man, this movie would be a chore though, because it's already so heavily edited. It's like, that would be hard.
It would be like, imagine if you could rearrange all the memories in chronological order, like see how their relationship, like that kind of fun stuff. I think it would be really cool. I really did love like how we, cut into him just crying in the car. Like I thought that was so funny, but also like it really set up the whole film with him, like, throwing the cassettes and all that stuff. One thing I want to talk about that we kind of already touched on it was the hallway thing, but I thought this was fascinating. And I brought this up to Helen too, where I was like, wait, that's so great that like the ending of them having cassettes of all the things they hated about each other. I was like telling her, I was like, that is like the perfect idea for a romance film where it begins with them knowing they end and them seeing all the red flags they have for each other. And like, I don't know, I just thought that was like super fascinating. And I thought like, man, how would that, like in reality, how would that work if you knew all the things you hate about someone before you committed or whatever? So I was going to ask you about that. Like, what do you think about that whole concept? Like do you think that
that'd be cool? Yeah, that'd be cool. Like some technology where it would know your personality and it would show you all the worst aspects of the other person. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, because like they have the cassettes. They're like, I hate how boring he is. I hate how private he is. I mean, all the red flags that you wrote. They're saying about each other.
Yeah.
I guess I wonder, like in your mind, do you think that would fix their relationship? Like them knowing the faults. Like if you came in knowing, like, okay, Joel's very private. So like if I'm going to be with him, it's not a surprise when he's private anymore because I'm entering this relationship knowing this.
It depends on how you interpret the ending, like we were talking about earlier. If you think that it's a happy ending and that because now they know all those flaws, like it's going to be good from now on and they'll just be able to make it, then yeah, you're right. But if not, like if you interpret it as, oh gosh, they're just going to do this all over and over again, kind of how Kaufman wrote it originally, like he seemed to conclude that that's what would happen, then yeah, not so much. I don't think it would help. Just to know now they know, but they're still going to do it again. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's the idea of like, does transparency help? Because you got to think they always knew what they didn't like about each other. They just didn't tell each other what they didn't like about each other until, they got their memory wiped. So like,
Yeah.
does honesty and transparency do anything to a relationship, or will the feelings be the same because the feelings are the same? It's just, hey, I don't
Oh,
like X, Y, and Z. Like, I don't know.
there's
That's a whole.
another Black Mirror shout out, but there's a episode that is where they're a couple in a relationship that there's a technology in their eyes, that's always recording their lives. So they have all of their experiences recorded. And when their relationship starts falling apart, they just use it as evidence against each other, and it just makes it worse because
Oh God.
they can just review everything, all the bad things that they've done, that they've seen each other do, and
Yeah.
it's right there readily available, and they can watch it again and get angry about it again, and blame the other person again and bring it up. And so yeah, I don't know, I think it would make it worse. It could just amplify all of it.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, one other thing I wanted to bring up that I mentioned in the review was like, there were some moments where Jim Carrey was Jim Carrey. Like there was some like in the montages. Like I remember one part where he's on the bed and he's just flailing like you would
Oh yeah,
imagine Jim. And I
yeah.
was like, there's no way this Joel character would. So I don't know. Unless have you ever like flailed on a bed like that? Like
Have I ever? I don't know. I don't know if I've ever done that. I don't know. It kind of makes sense. Like he's very. That's often the
comfortable.
case. Like with personalities that are very reserved and closed off. Like once you get them out of their shell, they can be very silly, and spontaneous. So like, it made sense.
Yeah.
And obviously because we know that that's how Jim Carrey, like that's part of his personality. It makes sense in the movie because it's
Yeah.
Jim Carrey. So I think it all works really well. Like I like the scene where they're watching the drive-in movie outside of the drive-in.
Oh my God.
So they're
Yeah.
just they're just making up lines for the movie. That was a nice, goofy, silly scene where Jim Carrey could sort of be himself. Well, not himself, but his persona, his goofy persona.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen you've seen like a lot of the recent Jim Carrey interviews and stuff?
Uh,
Have you kept up with him? Like,
I mean,
it's int- it's interesting because now he's kind of he's kind of Joel. Like his
yeah,
personality now, his
yeah,
public persona that he does in interviews and stuff is basically Joel, like a depressed, like a little bit more like enlightened sort of acting guy,
yeah.
but very very depressive, just really raw and
Hmm.
I don't know, just very wearing his negative emotions on his sleeve. It's interesting. So I
Yeah,
almost feel like I wonder if in retrospect it was a really good movie for him because he got to express that part of his personality in a movie finally, where he
yeah,
hadn't been able to, like for all those years that he'd been doing the comedy movies.
yeah,
And now he talks, I've heard him in interviews now talking about how that felt like such a prison that he was stuck in, to like have to be that guy in all of his movies, and every time he made a public appearance and an interview, like it was just exhausting. So
yeah.
it's kind of cool. It's cool that he had these early movies like this,
That's
because it
so
seems like
interesting.
now I don't know. It's weird that he keeps doing I mean, he does, like, what was he? Most recent
The
movies that I've
Sonic,
seen him in, like, which one?
the Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
Oh yeah, that was the one I was gonna say. Yeah, the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, and yeah, it's kind of sad. He should do.
Yeah.
I don't know why I know there was a movie in recent years where he was like a Russian gangster kind of character that the movie
Whoa.
flopped, and
Yeah.
then the number 23,
I like
obviously
that one a
is
lot.
an infant. Really? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say that's infamous for being really really horrible.
Have you seen it?
And then I have not seen it. No, I have
I,
not actually watched it because I
I
just
think I actually
gotten
liked
so
it.
many horrible like
Yeah.
reviews of it. But maybe I should judge it for myself.
Honestly, it's
But
it's like the butterfly effect with Ashton Kutcher. Like I
yeah,
think the ideas and concept is so cool, but then it's like
yeah,
you're getting what you're getting. So it's kind of like a B movie, and I think that's why
Right.
people hate it.
Maybe so. Maybe they expected it to be like a Eternal Sunshine or the Truman Show or something, but it wasn't. But yeah, I don't know.
Wow. But yeah, what you just made me think of is I think it would be so cool if Kaufman, adapted, like remade, did a remake of Eternal Sunshine with him rewriting it and directing it, and then having the same exact cast, all like aged up.
God.
And like it could be the same exact scenario, and it would tie with his original idea of them looping, and it would be like a remake, sequel, adaptation. And he's like into that weird like self-telling whatever, and like that would be so cool. Ideas. And you could use scenes from this original film as memories and then make new memories. Oh my god, dude, that would be so fucking genius.
That would all work. Yeah, you could actually, how like a lot of movies now they just put in scenes. I don't know, like Star Wars movies. It's for nostalgia, but like this would actually make sense because it's all one story. It's all same characters. It's their lives looping. Yeah,
it could be like a weird, like what's his face does it with like Boyhood and Eternal Sun, the Before Sunset, like that time jumping.
Yeah,
that would be so cool. Wow.
Oh wow, he could. It would be much darker. It would be more like like a Synecdoche, New York.
Yeah.
Vibes.
Oh my god, I need to watch that one.
Sad old. Oh man, when you do, we should definitely talk about. I think you'll really like it because you seem to like that part of Kaufman. The more full Kaufman, unadulterated. Kaufman. Then that's definitely it.
Because that's what I found weird was that there was two other writers. One being the director, but like the Pierre guy, I've never heard of him, and I'm just like, that's like I think this might be his only film that has another writer besides him.
I don't think they actually did it. I think it's like they have story credit because, like, I read that it was that friend of Michel Gondry, Pierre. All he did was suggest the concept. He was like, wouldn't it be interesting? Like, he just came up with the story concept. Like, wouldn't it be interesting if someone handed you a piece of paper and it said that someone had erased you from their memory?
Wow.
And like, that's all they had. So, and then they handed it off to Charlie Kaufman to make a full screenplay out of it. So I still think most of it you can credit to Charlie Kaufman.
Interesting. All right. Well, is there any other big parts that you want to discuss that we haven't touched? I
don't think so. I think watching the movie will give the full experience to anyone.
Awesome. So I guess the final question we have is this canon?
I think so.
Yeah.
Just it's hard to say why exactly, but I guess if you want to make anti-relationship movies a genre, then this would be a good starter.
I think, honestly, I see this film not really as an anti-romance, but as like a breakup movie. Like, I think it is a very great break. Like, I think if I would have came into this movie expecting this is just a breakup film, like almost like a, like how Pig was like a depression, like release of depression or whatever of a death of a person. I feel like this would be a great if you came in knowing this is about the death of relationships, because that's what it is. It's about erasing someone, and for some reason, I just kept thinking it was going to be like a relationship coming out of that. And I mean, they do hint at it, but I think there's a lot of like all the fighting. I feel like fits more of a breakup film than a makeup film.
Yeah. Right. Definitely. So, Yep. That fits it. That label fits it. Official submission for breakup films into the canon.
Breakup canon. We had Viking canon. Now we have breakup canon.
That's true.
But yeah, I think it is definitely canon just in general, because it's also like I see like on the top you have here like how it. I don't think it like directly inspired these films, but like the movie Her, 500 Days of Summer, Blue Val, like they all kind of fit this mold of, the end of a relationship. So it's so cool. Like this happened so early, and yeah, with just these weird people involved, like the performers and directors and writers and all that kind of stuff, that it's lived so long. And then it's like such a huge movie in the conscious of like film enthusiasts. Like I feel like like, and then it's such a beautiful film title. Like it's one of the greatest film titles of all time. Even though I'm still kind of confused on what it means. Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you like what exactly? I guess it's like the endless joy of not knowing anything. Is that like
basically just like a fancy way of saying ignorance is bliss. I mean, yeah, I feel like that's it. Like I read the quote. I kept reading the quote over and over, and it's really hard to understand because it's like poetic and sort of old English. But the quote is just talking about like, basically how nice it is to be innocent and not really know much about the world. And how that is nice, but specifically in this movie, obviously just talking about relationships and how nice it would be to just, I guess, just forgetting, like how nice it is that we can forget things. And so this movie is just like, what if you could force yourself to forget things, but
awesome, man. Well, finally we have a new addition to the canon. I can't remember what the last one was, but I think it's been a while. So
what was it like? Mishima or Taxi Driver? I don't know.
I think it would have been Taxi Driver, right? Yeah, because that was one of the later. We saw that after Mishima, so it would have been Taxi Driver. Yeah. Interesting. But all right,
we got to do more of these throwbacks every once in a while.
Honestly, dude, like I really am like so close to just being like, all right, let me just do all Kaufman films, because like I'm thinking of Ending Things, and that has skyrocketed into insane levels. So and then like I haven't seen Syndicate, so I think that would be super. And Anomalisa, I think, did you watch that one?
Yeah, I didn't like that one as much. Like I don't remember much about that.
I know a lot of people hate on it, and I'm curious, but a lot of people hate on I'm thinking of Ending Things, and that just keeps growing every time I watch it.
I need to watch it again because I think it would grow on me even more.
Yeah.
Synecdoche you should definitely watch. It is pure, just like peak Kaufman.
Yeah. And then Philip Seymour Hoffman, like what a huge actor.
Oh yeah.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Cineverm. We would be grateful and humbled if you could leave us a review with your thoughts or comments on Apple Podcasts or Good Pods, and if you could share us with your friends or family, as that really helps us in our journey to spread the love of cinema. And we will see you next time.
See ya.
Cinema.